Good evening. Welcome to the Trading Bell. I'm Noah Kitkenboy. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines chemistry as the branch of science concerned with the substance of which matter is composed, the investigation of their properties and reactions, and the use of such reactions to form new substances. And the big question is, the products that you use, they do have a chemical component. Have you asked yourself, who makes this chemical? Well, today we have a pleasure of sitting down with Shollay Ramlaul, who's the county cluster head of BASF East Africa. Here's her profile.
With over 22 years of experience in chemical distribution in Africa, Shollay Ramlaul stands out for her expertise in strategy building, chemistry industry value chain, market mapping, and sales execution. Shollay has a degree in microbiology and business management certificates from various business schools in Germany and South Africa. She has worked for companies such as Brenntag South Africa Crest Chemicals. Ms. Ramlaul has been with BASF for 10 years, 7 of which were at BASF South Africa Limited as sales and industry manager and local sales manager, Chemicals Cluster Sub-Sahara Africa, and 3 years at BASF East Africa Limited as head of sales and business. She now has a new role from 1st May 2021 as country cluster head and head of sales and business development, East Africa.
Welcome to the Trading Bell.
Thank you, Noah.
Interesting. I mean, BASF, it must stand for something and it must have a history. So give us a brief understanding.
So BASF does stand for something. It is indeed an abbreviation, Badische Aniline und Soda-Fabrik.
No wonder I didn't say.
And that gives you an idea of our heritage. We are a German company, founded all the way in 1865 by a very, very good goldsmith, gas maker, and entrepreneur called Friedrich Engelhorn in 1865 in Germany. Originally, the Badische part of our name means a certain part of Germany, which is close to Mannheim. And aniline is the coal tar, which was the chemistry of the day. Soda means all the inorganic ancillaries that he came up with. And Fabrik is just a German word for factory. Right. So that is our heritage, Badische Aniline und Soda-Fabrik.
Definitely.
Of course, we've since evolved since then. It's been 154 years and counting with BASF's heritage, and we have evolved with the times. So that's our heritage.
Definitely.
You know, our humble heritage.
Quite humble. I mean, existing from the 1800s all the way, that shows a lot of change in the way you do business. And now you are in East Africa. You've been in East Africa for quite a while. For how long has that been happening, and what products are you operating with in the current market?
So the evolution of our chemistry has been quite defined. We have major milestones in our history. We started off, like we said, as a coal tar and inorganic ancillaries manufacturing. We then moved on to ammonia. So ammonia synthesis, which is the basis for the fertilizer industry. From there, we moved on to high pressure synthesis. And that was when we moved from the Badische region into Ludwigshafen, where our current head office is. And that was the birthplace of our Verbund. Now, Verbund in Germany, simply put, means a fully integrated chemical site, where we start off with a few raw materials, and from it comes hundreds and thousands of other raw materials that we make. So that's how we evolved. We then went into globalization, where we decided that being a European country, we need to expand. We expanded from Europe first into North America then into South America. From South America, we then went to Asia into Middle East, and yes, unfortunately, Africa was our last home.
Yeah. So in terms of the chemical market, the East African market, I understand your home country, South Africa, the largest component of your market in Africa. You've worked there for a while. And now East Africa. What is the comparison between these different regions in terms of your product, uptake?
So I've been fortunate enough with BASF to not just work in South Africa, but I've also worked in West Africa. For a long while, I used to go to Nigeria and Lagos more than I used to come to East Africa. But if you look at the difference in demand between the different clusters, some of it is raw materials driven. So like in West Africa, because they have oil and gas, they do heavy petrochemical manufacturing where they have their own manufacturing of ammonia, they have their own manufacturing of PET resin. Now, if you ask me what's PET resin, it's the stuff that makes your blue water bottles. Okay. So in Nigeria, they make their own. South Africa, because of its apartheid heritage, had to think a little bit out of the box when they became an apartheid country. And the only thing that they had going for them at the time was something called coal. So yes. Coal. And so what South Africa did is they took a German technology called Fischer-Tropsch and took it to a large scale level and started gasifying coal and made chemicals from coal. And that was the birth of Sasol. Right. So that's the single reason why South Africa's chemical demand is still the highest. It's because of the heritage of where they've had to manufacture immense amounts of products locally for the local consumption. East Africa, if you look at our total market size, we're still heavily reliant on agriculture, where agriculture makes up 50 to 60% of our GDP contribution, which means our demand from a chemicals point of view is very different. So we first start with the agrochemicals, which is also where we are in. BASF is also in vegetable seeds. Followed by that is what we call consumer demand. So the stuff you eat, the stuff you drink, the clothes you wear, we call that consumer demand. BASF is very, very heavily present in what we call the home care and the personal care market, together with the food and nutrition, your drugs, your pharmaceuticals, yes, your day-to-day. We are even in your cars, if you would come to understand, things like your automotive coolants. Mm-hmm. And then we go the step back. So we talk first consumer, which is where you don't see us because we're a B2B business.
Yes.
A step behind that is the manufacturers. So those are our customers.
Yes.
And in there is where you don't see us, but our technology is in there. So for example, the chair you're sitting on, it's foam. Oh. Did you ever think that foam is made out of chemistry?
Now I'm thinking about it. We are having this conversation. Am I sitting on BASF?
You're sitting on BASF foam.
All right.
So foam is a simple chemistry. It sounds simple because it's two parts that we put together. And when they react, like your definition says, it forms something completely different. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we are today, trying to expand the business, because you have consumer foam, which is your beds, your chairs, but we would like to see the evolution of what we call industrial foams. Mm-hmm. So we do know that there is a local content law for the automotive industry. So we are very, very engaged with the market in terms of developing seats. Mm-hmm. For not just cars, but also for motorbikes.
Very critical. And what you've seen currently with the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been a mixed bag. For some, it's been a treasure. For others, it's been catastrophic. For the chemical industry where you operate, how did it react to the COVID-19 pandemic? And how is it recovering now we are on the recovery phase from the pandemic?
So like the entire world was affected and almost every value chain was affected, the chemical value chain was also affected, because we do start with raw materials and we do have end products. So what we saw during the pandemic is we saw some of the trends that we were tracking accelerate and some of the trends that we were tracking decelerate ahead of time. What decelerated ahead of time was the global movement of goods and people. And something that had almost caught us on guard and caught the whole world on guard is the de-urbanization, where people chose to move away from the cities because they didn't want to get infected. How do we then react? And don't forget, we're a B2B business. We second in the line, so it all depended on how quickly manufacturers reacted. So the quicker the manufacturers reacted, the quicker we were able to serve them. So what we saw, what accelerated, is with people sitting at home, they suddenly realized that, maybe I should be more sustainable. Mm-hmm. Do I really need to buy this bag in plastic, or can I get it in paper? So sustainability started becoming a thing for people who were sitting at home. So everybody from local retailers to international retailers suddenly found digitalization methods to deliver goods to their people. And that was, of course, something we had already done. BASF went into digitalization almost 15 years ago when we started building platforms for our clients to access our products digitally. But then we took it the next step further, where we started seeing how could we use the Internet of Things to optimize our Verbund site, like I said. Because if you have to picture a Verbund site, BASF in Germany is 14 square kilometers, and that's one portion of it. To optimize that takes massive amount of data processing. So the Internet of Things helped us speed those things up. And then, of course, luckily for us in Kenya, we had a business continuity plan. So sending everybody home to work safely was easily achieved. And because we have invested in local supply chains in Kenya, we had the products available at our local third-party warehouse, still for delivery just in time, both to essential services like the agrochemical side of our business, where farmers still needed to plant, including the home and personal care side, because demand for hand sanitizers went up.
Yes.
And so when your hand sanitizers and your hand cleaners are made, a lot of you don't know that there's surfactants in there. It's basically a chemical or a chemical name for cleaners, the stuff that you make soap with. It's called a surfactant. Demand for that was needed on a local level. And it wasn't just the global companies that were needing it. People that had suddenly didn't have work anymore started becoming formulation technologists and learning how to make hand sanitizer and hand soap on the internet.
Touching on the chemical industry as BASF, what avenues have you created? What are you doing to make sure that more people are coming into the value chain, especially, individuals and small businesses?
So what we started doing, and we had already started doing it before the pandemic hit, but again, we accelerated that trend that we saw, is that we realized that there were small to medium businesses that wanted to start delivering good quality products to the market, but didn't have the technical know-how, and neither did they have access to the chemistry. So we tackled it on both fronts. Last year, just as I think a month into the pandemic, we hosted a webinar in conjunction with quite a few of our stakeholders, where we had almost 85 manufacturers of home and personal care goods, and we taught people online how to make hand washers and hand sanitizers. So we literally gave them the formulations.
All right.
And then allowed them to scale up their manufacturing. As part of our CSR during pandemic, we actually used the University of Nairobi, who funnily enough have a detergents unit that they use to manufacture home and personal care materials, which they sell. And we approached them because they needed a formulation to build a good hand wash. And so we helped them with the formulation, we helped them with we donated the raw materials. And I think it was within 2 months, they got a KEBS approved hand wash, which we then donated to all the counties. We went to the counties. And then, of course, the single largest recipients of all of that was also a lot of our farmers up country, where we gave the lion's share of it.